Hello and welcome to NBC News Hour right here on NBC. In the next 60 minutes, our reporters across the country will give us the latest in politics, business, entertainment and sports. I am Simeon Boyce and of course,
Sifadim Susanda. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Savita Wilima. We're glad you could join us. Let's take a look at our top stories tonight.
First Lady Professor Gertrude Mutaniga urges students of Our Lady of Wisdom to focus on education for better future. Indian High Commissioner hails the country's leadership for promoting freedom of worship. And in sports, all eyes on FDH Bank Premiership as new season begins this weekend.
Now, Indian High Commissioner to Malawi, Amararam Gujar, has hailed the country's leadership for creating a peaceful atmosphere for freedom of worship. Gujar made the remarks during the celebration of Baisakhi, a harvest festival marking agricultural prosperity for Sikh community members at Sikh Temple in Limbe. Nixon Malemia has compiled this report, read by Ruthi Chinangwa.
Gujar said that while the country's leadership is working hard to fix the economy, it was encouraging that the leadership is also championing the peaceful coexistence of different religious groups in the country.
His Worship Excellency Mayor also spoke in his remark that Malawi is, of course, is a very democratic country and where freedom of expression is there, so that a person of all religions, all faiths, they are free to observe their belief and faith also. So here like Muslim community also, they are also free to pray. Sikh community, Hindu, Christian, so many other religion peoples, they are free to observe their faith and observe to construct their worship places also. So on that note, just I want to tell you that as it was mentioned by President of the Sikh Association in Malawi, a person that Gurdwara was established in 1928.
Blantyre City Mayor, Councillor Isaac Jobo Osman, hailed members of the Sikh community in Malawi for making a significant contribution towards the country's development, including job creation. The mayor said Malawians have a lot to learn from members of the Sikh community in Malawi, including business ventures.
First of all, it's like really what the freedom of worship. The Excellency, Professor Zachitika, he gives the freedom of worship. So to us, to join these people in the celebrating today, is not a problem to us. So we just join them. We should learn to respect, local Malawians. When we see someone is pushing, we think that that person will not go far. So it's high time to learn how our friends do it. They believe in themselves. Whatever they believe in, they do it. So we need also to believe and we can do it. We can achieve our goal by believing in what we are thinking of.
Chairperson for Sikh Association in Malawi, Manwinder Sin, said the members of the community will strive to create business and job opportunities for the country's prosperity.
Today we celebrate our festival called Baisakhi, which is meant for the harvesting season, as well as the foundation of our religion, which was done in 1699. And today marks another important day. We have unveiled the bust of our warrior Sikh Empire King, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, which has been inaugurated today by the High Commissioner of India and his worship, the Mayor of Blantyre. King's Sikh's presence in Malawi has been continued, and they were part of also the installation of all the railway lines in the 4 East African countries, that was Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania and Malawi. So Sikhs has been, all the engineering job has been contributed by them.
During the festival, the Sikh community members, the Indian High Commissioner to Malawi and Blantyre City Mayor unveiled a bust of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, a Sikh warrior and a visionary leader who fostered a golden era of prosperity tolerance and unity before he died in 1839.
The Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA, has challenged local leaders in Mangochi to embrace the implementation of a national physical address system, saying the initiative has the potential to promote tourism in the Lakeshore District. Speaking during an interface meeting with members of Mangochi District Executive Committee, MACRA Communications Manager Clara Ngwira said the National Physical Address System program can spur economic growth through tourism sector. She emphasized the need for local leaders, including traditional chiefs, to support the initiative. We have a report by Eswatini Ndazi, read by Dave Umar.
Speaking during a stakeholders meeting in Mangochi, MACRA's Communications Manager Clara Ngwira said the National Physical Address System initiative is an ongoing program where houses will be numbered, streets and buildings named for efficient goods and service delivery. She said the project is aimed to digitize Malawi by mapping unique codes to locations nationwide. She therefore called on stakeholders, particularly traditional leaders, to embrace the system by helping raise awareness on the importance of the National Physical Address System to their subjects.
The system is beneficial to us as Malawians because we are promoting tourism. Tourists should come to our country, but how do they come to our country and feel safe? They need to know where they are going. So, which is the destination that they have chosen? That particular destination should have a physical address. And once they punch that into their phones, it will guide them straight to that particular place.
According to Ngwira, through the project, young people will have employment opportunities because they will be engaged in the coding of the houses, among other roles. Reacting to the development, Senior Chief Bwananyambi of the district held MACRA for the project.
As traditional leaders, we are happy with the project. Our understanding is that the project will be beneficial to our people. Apart from its core objective, we are being requested to identify potential young people who will be helping in the project, like erecting signposts, coding streets, and numbering of houses in our areas.
Benefits include provision of verified proof of residence and increased accuracy in population and housing census information collection as a result of accurate numbering and naming of physical infrastructures.
Minister of Trade Simon Itaye has commended young people in the country for taking the lead in innovation, describing it as a key driver in reducing unemployment. Itaye made the remarks in Lilongwe after touring a pavilion at the National ICT Innovation Awards organized by the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA. He explains.
We have been talking about job creation and so on and so forth, and in this instance what I've seen is that these youth are creating their own jobs, and they are also employing, and some of them will be employing some people as they go along. And also what has been very impressive to me is that all the products are products that can be sold meaningfully, and also they are serving a purpose, some of them for education, others for agriculture. So we have, I think, very good innovators in Malawi, and what we need to do is to mentor them and ensure that the products are being sold and the trade can go up in terms of their products that they have. I have also seen some products that have been told have been exported out of this country. So now we are looking at trading services, and we are now exporting some of our trading services in terms of the products that we are locally producing in Malawi.
First Friday, Professor Gertrude Mutalika has urged students at Our Lady of Wisdom Secondary School to dedicate themselves to education to succeed in future. Madam Mutalika said this when she paid a surprise visit to her former teacher, Sister Odilia Onondo, at the institute in Limbe Blantyre. More in this report.
After years of being out of touch, Professor Gertrude Mutalika took some time off her busy schedule to reconnect with her former St. Mary's Girls Secondary School teacher, Sister Odilia Onondo. After her meeting with Sister Odilia, she couldn't escape the happy faces of the students at the institution, and she was compelled to address and encourage them.
I'm very excited to show you. I don't know what to say.
Addressing the students, the First Lady, Professor Gertrude Mutarika, urged the girls to work hard in their studies, reminding them that with dedication and determination, everything is possible. She further asked the students to put their hearts in education, saying with education they can achieve anything.
I was like you when I was at St. Mary's Secondary School. But I had Sister Onondo and other teachers who mentored me to be what I am. And I know you have those teachers there. They are mentoring you to be managers. Some of you, maybe one of you or two, will be first ladies. We don't know. So please, I encourage you to work very, very hard. Work very hard. Work very hard. Work very hard.
In her remarks, Sister Odilia Onondo expressed deep gratitude, describing it as an honor to see her former student now serving as the nation's First Lady. She said the surprise visit would remain one of the most memorable days of her life.
I'm very excited to show you. I don't know what to say. One of my best students at St. Mary's, who is Madam
Sister Onondo taught Professor Gertrude Mutarika years ago at St. Mary's Girls Secondary School in Zomba, making the reunion a touching reminder of the enduring bond between teacher and student.
There has been calls to popularize the C-section birth method in order to clear the myths surrounding the procedure, which deems women that have gone through the experience inferior. This is coming in as internationally the month of April was set to advocate for the cause. Rashida Matandika reports.
Edith Nkwela Gondwe, a mother of two, went through the C-section procedure. From her experience, she was ready for a normal delivery, went through 24 hours of labor pains and a good progress in contractions, but abruptly everything stopped. A decision had to be made to save the child who, according to doctors, needed to be saved, but consent was needed. Tunkwela Gondwe, her consent saved the child who was in distress, and today she advocates for the method for the sake of every mother who went through the knife and who experienced it for reasons beyond control.
For a woman to undergo that, it is not because the woman is lazy, it's not because she's bewitched, it is because it is a necessity to protect the life of the child as well as the life of the mother. So when we hear or see a lot of people looking down upon mothers who've given birth through C-section, it is because they are ignorant.
Gondwe emphasizes that the world must be educated on this because their judgmental attitude towards C-section mothers leads to women risking their lives in the childless.
So what we need to do as a country is to raise awareness, to make Malawians be aware that it is okay, it is totally okay for you to give birth through C-section. Of course, our first option is always the V-birth, but then if that is not working, we don't have any other option but to go for C-section, which is equally okay.
Mentally, she calls for support towards mothers from society, starting from their family members. The Awareness Month is not only for the public, but according to Dr. Gifty Kawarazira, Director of Health and Social Services in Blantyre, healthy personnel are also reminded on their roles.
There are specified indications that are actually acceptable for one to be considered to be conducted a cesarean section. So it actually encourages us to make sure that we are following that to the letter. Don't just conduct a cesarean section on anybody or simply because you are happy that day. No. There are specific reasons why someone should be assisted through a cesarean section method.
And commenting on how Malawi is faring currently as compared to previous years, The executive director of Malawi Health Equity Network, George Jobe, said that while Malawi is progressing in the method, there is need for more investments as challenges are still there.
There are some challenges because the access is still uneven, particularly in rural and hard-to-reach areas where surgical capacity, skilled healthcare workers, even blood, functional theaters are still limited. In some health facilities, there are also some delays in making decisions as to subject a pregnant woman or expectant woman to cesarean section.
In Blantyre alone, at least 20 women are said to deliver through cesarean section per day at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and at least 4 to 5 cases are registered in other hospitals. Nationally, 4.6% to 6% of all institutional births are through the procedure, against the World Health Organization recommendation of 5 to 15%, which shows that Malawi still do not have access to necessary cesarean deliveries. Rashida Matandika, NBC News, Blantyre.
Strained relationships and family conflicts are among the major challenges contributing to mental health problems affecting many women and girls in the country. This has been revealed during a month-long mental wellness campaign conducted by the organization known as Sorry I Am Not Sorry, which started from 10th March to 10th April. Our reporter Ruth Chinangwa engaged Human Resource and Operations Manager for the organization, Harriet Major, to shed more light on the outcome of the campaign.
Okay, there were many challenges. I'll just mention a few, or the ones that actually stood out the most. The first was obviously relationships and marriage problems. A lot of people came to vent about issues that they're going through in their relationship, marriage, abuse, relationship traumas, and everything else. The other one was the actual reproductive health problems, infertility, miscarriage, PMDD, and all those issues that are surrounding reproductive health. The other one was financial problems and how they are balancing that up with parenthood or marriage issues. So these were the most that stood out, and the others were secondary that were more personal, like maybe struggling with school.
What was the turnout, the way women came to seek for help in the month that you targeted them in mental health?
There were 10 who came to the anonymous digital platform. So those that came, we talked and sought therapy, but without actually wanting to be known, were 10. But about 207 showed up for the therapy sessions for the one-on-one.
How is the country faring in as far as mainstreaming mental health issues is concerned, in all areas mainly?
I think that Malawi has now started recognizing and accepting these mental health problems. I think we have seen a lot of noise, a lot of voice, a lot of people and institutions talking about, even the government recognizing it, although we as an organization would also like to say that we also have some type of long way to go to reach to the masses. If you notice, most of these mental health lessons or education is happening in English and not necessarily in our vernacular language. And also the interventions are basically just in our towns and not necessarily in the villages. So people are just going through things without actually knowing what to say. If they don't even have the language for what they're going through, they do not know what to say, how to say it, and also where to go when they're going through that. Some people think that it's normal. During the campaign, we've noted that some people would rate those things as normal. They didn't even know that it was a problem until you found the word for it, and they're like, oh, that's what I think I'm going through. So there are a lot of improvements that we can do as a country and as a nation together.
Former Reserve Bank of Malawi Governor McDonald Mafuta Mwale says the bank did not authorize the sale of Amaryllis Hotel to Public Service Pension Trust Fund because the transaction was violating the regulator's directives for financial institutions. Mwale, who was also Registrar of Financial Institutions, has also said this in Lilongwe when he appeared before the Public Accounts Committee for the Amaryllis Hotel sale inquiry. Beatrice Mwape reports.
The former Reserve Bank governor has told the Public Accounts Committee that the regulator received a tip-off from the Pensions Fund Board suggesting that despite the central bank halting processes, the Public Service Pension Trust Fund was continuing with the transaction. Mafuta Mwale says the Reserve Bank sent a letter seeking an engagement with the boards to reiterate its stance on the stop order till emerging issues were resolved, but efforts were not successful. According to the former Registrar of Financial Institutions, the decision to halt the processes was arrived at after noting that there was no compliance to processes and regulations and that the deal would jeopardize timely payment of pension funds. Dr. Mafuta Mwale has told the committee that the Reserve Bank did not make a transaction on behalf of the fund, adding that the Public Service Pension Trust Fund is an independent institution and makes its own decisions. He has since called for a thorough investigation of the board for not obeying the orders, adding those responsible should be held accountable.
Balancing the asset book is what made us to stop them, because we're not sure if you lock money, investment in that asset, how are you taking care of this concern? We could see a situation where the fund has all the investments, big houses there, big hotels there, but failing to pay a pensioner when his money for due, because they have locked all their money in those investments. And this is what the registrar has to protect, to make sure that the pensioner is receiving his or her money on.
Chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, Stephen Malondera, has commended Dr. Mafuta Mwale for appearing before the committee and making recommendations which will help with the inquiry. On the request by Yusuf Investment, owners of the hotel, to hold the discussions in camera, Malondera says the committee has rejected the request as the inquiry is of public interest.
Malawians would like to see this, in my view, will undermine the reason why we have reopened the investigation. It will not make sense that you have reopened, then he is requesting that he appears in camera. Because as it stands, it is very clear people want to hear from the owners of Amaryllis Hotel and Miss Colini Zamba. So in our view, we felt having that in camera is a big deal.
The Public Accounts Committee is expected to meet others mentioned in the transaction, among them National Bank, former Secretary to Government Colin Zamba, and the owner of Amaryllis Hotel, Shiraz Yusuf, and the board of Yusuf Investment Limited. The Reserve Bank of Malawi ordered the Public Service Pension Trust Fund to immediately reverse the over 128 billion kwacha purchase of Amaryllis Hotel, and about 72.6 billion kwacha has since been traced and frozen. Beatrice Mwape, NBC News, Lilongwe.
The Catholic Church of Malawi has described the trip by Pope Leo XIV of Africa as a symbol of relevance and solidarity with the continent. Archbishop of Blantyre Archdiocese, Thomas Luke Msusa, made the remarks as the Catholic leader is winding up his Africa tour. Chelson Magombo with a report.
The trip was meant to turn the world's attention towards Africa. Commenting on the tour, Archbishop of Blantyre Archdiocese, Thomas Lukunsusa, said African countries are not forgotten by countries caught up by their own concerns, and that the tour was a deliberate act to put Africa back on the world agenda.
Therefore, it's a pastoral visit which encourages every person in Africa to accept his leadership, also to accept the presence of God. Another important thing is that his visit assures us as Africans that we too are people who belong to God. We are not an isolated people, but we are part of the world, citizens of the world. That's why Pope Leo XIV recognizes the people of Africa. That is also very encouraging for us.
Having visited Nigeria, Cameroon, and Angola, the Catholic leader stressed the need for African Catholics to lead on peace, debt relief, climate, and development. He encouraged Catholics in African countries to be on the forefront in spreading the gospel that will lead the world into prosperity. Statistics show that 20% of the world's Catholics are found in Africa. Johnson Magombo, NBC News.
Now, FDH Bank has reaffirmed its commitment to strengthening its partnership with the national broadcaster NBC. FDH Bank's Senior Manager for National Government and Public Enterprises, Eugene Chikandwe, made the remarks when the bank's officials paid a courtesy call on the newly appointed Director General of the Malawi Broadcasting Corporation, NBC, Brian Banda. The bank has pledged to elevate its engagement with NBC from a largely transactional relationship to a more strategic and mutually beneficial partnership. In his remarks, Banda expressed appreciation for the long-standing relationship between NBC and FDH Bank, acknowledging the institution's continued support and the opportunities it has extended over the years. He underscored the importance of such partnerships in NBC's ongoing efforts to reposition itself and reclaim its status as a leading public broadcaster. Now you're watching News Hour on NBC. Still to come, we join our colleagues at our Lilongwe studios, plus the latest in business and sports news. A reminder of our top stories.
First Lady Professor Gertrude Mutaliga urges students of Our Lady of Wisdom to focus on education for better future. Indian High Commissioner hails the country's leadership for promoting freedom of worship. And in sports, all eyes on FDH Bank Premiership as new season begins this weekend.
Kola Zachitika, Sikh, Ndiyankolana. Kamalo kachepa kumazokolola kamwamwa. Izi ni mbewu zogwizana ndi kusintha kwa nyengo. Zopirira kuchilala. Ndipo zimalola zigawo zonse za dziko lino. Iphani makwacha kumasathisa ni njala. Kolima mbewu za Sikh, mbewu ndela.
Welcome back. Let's now join our colleagues in Lilongwe studios for the latest update from the Central Region.
From our Area 4 studios in Lilongwe, welcome to this segment of News Hour. You're with me, Maim Tomots, and my colleague
Beatrice Mwabe.
Straight to our first story. Vandalism of streetlights in newly expanded roads of Lilongwe has worsened, with over 80% of the streetlights stolen in some streets of the city. A tour of some streets by NBC has shown that vandals have been cutting down fiber poles and in some cases pulling down concrete poles to steal solar lamps that are attached at the top. From Lilongwe, Patrick Dambula reports.
Barely 6 months after the opening of newly expanded roads in Lilongwe City, solar street lights have already fallen prey to vandals who are stealing the lamps. For example, a tour of Nzimba Street by MPC has revealed that over 80% of the lights have already been removed as vandals have cut down the fiber poles. Along the Presidential Drive, which has concrete poles, the situation is even worse as almost each and every pole stands empty. The situation probably puts residents of the city at risk as robbers are taking advantage of the darkness at night, with a number of incidents already reported. This is one of the reasons that prompted the Roads Fund Administration and the Lilongwe City Council to convene a meeting so as to discuss the issue. Executive Officer for Lilongwe City Council Clement Stambuli said it is deplorable that as the council is making efforts to modernize the city, some people with ill intentions are doing the opposite by vandalizing road infrastructure.
Indeed, it is so deplorable that as the council is working, trying to ensure that it modernizes the city, other people are coming in vandalizing. So we are to have a special program that will be working closely with the Malawi police, and also we'll be implementing other technologies which will surely help us to ensure that our street lights are not being vandalized in the way they are, because it's quite bad.
For his part, Chief Executive Officer for RFA, Stuart Malata, said they have agreed with the Lilongwe City Council to go the technology way in dealing with the problem. He said among the technologies to be used are CCTV cameras and installation of chips in the lamps for easy tracing when stolen. Malata has also urged the City Council to emphasize on civic educating the people of the city on the importance of owning development projects and reporting vandals.
These facilities are for the people, they are for the public. It's using public money to install these facilities. So civic education is very important. One of the things that they will look at is to encourage the citizenry to own these things. And if they see that somebody has stolen and is keeping a stolen street light, they should be the first ones to report that individual. So the city is very serious about this.
Currently, the Lilongwe City Council has also plans to rehabilitate and complete some road projects with funds from the RFA. Patrick Dambula, MPC News, Lilongwe.
Now, Malawi is stepping up efforts to revive its once thriving banana industry through a partnership with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the government of China. The initiative aims to empower smallholder farmers, strengthen value chains, and boost security under the One Country, One Priority Product program. McDonald Chuayula reports.
Bananas were once a major contributor to Malawi's agricultural economy, but disease outbreaks in the 1990s led to a sharp decline in production. Now, through the FAO China South-South Cooperation Program, government is working to restore the sector by focusing on smallholder farmers and sustainable production systems. Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Togo Tembo, said the initiative will focus on scaling up production through smallholder farmers.
We all remember how in the 80s and the 90s we used to have farms growing bananas everywhere, mainly in Cholo, and something happened in the during that time, that there was a disease that got rid of most of the crop, and now we have to import bananas from our neighbors, mostly Tanzania and others. But now with this program, it means that we'll go back to farming bananas again, and this time on a larger scale, and especially with the help that our partners are going to be bringing in. So this will help a lot with Forex. It will help a lot with our farmers as well to gain some income from banana.
The program is being implemented under the One Country, One Priority Product initiative, which promotes specialized agricultural value chains. Chinese ambassador to Malawi, Lung Shu, says the partnership will prioritize knowledge and skills transfer.
We'll give the Malawi farmers on-site, hands-on training. That's the way for the technique transfer. Yes, to teach how what technology we have, and to teach them how to grow better crops in this way.
And in his remarks, FAO Deputy Director for Plant Production and Protection explained that the approach is designed to ensure long-term sustainability by equipping farmers with modern farming techniques. He further said the initiative will strengthen resilience in Malawi's food systems.
The OCOP initiative, which prioritizes special agricultural products of countries, is a means to support countries to generate those homegrown solutions that buffer their agri-food systems from external shocks.
Adding his voice to the initiative, FAO country representative in Malawi, Ali Said Yusuf, said early signs of recovery are already being recorded in some banana growing areas.
The new China South-South cooperation, we're going to scale up these interventions to make impact. We have seen good results from the previous engagements, but this initiative, what you have seen today being launched, and the inception phase is being launched, is to have this banana value chain development in this country scaled up through research, through technical expertise, and through capacity building to the various departments, particularly the crop department, the research department in the Ministry of Agriculture.
The initiative is expected to boost production, improve market access, and position bananas as a key driver of economic growth and food security in Malawi. McDonald Shwaila, NBC News, Lilongwe.
Mwapata Institute is calling for increased agricultural productivity as one of addressing trade restrictions that affect the country. Speaking during a stakeholders engagement on rapid evidence and policy dialogue on agricultural restrictions in Malawi, Mwapata Institute Research Fellow Kriston Nyondo said the country often imposes export bans and import restrictions during periods of low supply due to domestic shortfalls. He noted that improving agricultural yields would help Malawi manage such trends as increased production would result in surplus. Details in this report by Madalitso.
According to Mwapata Institute, Malawi used to impose export bans and import restrictions due to low harvest. However, these restrictions affect the value chain for crops like maize and soybean. In a drive to address this, experts converged to discuss how the country can tackle trade bans. Mwapata Institute Research Fellow Kriston Nyondo highlighted that agricultural trade restrictions would be unnecessary if the country produced enough to meet needs of domestic consumption and export market. Nyondo therefore highlighted the need to significantly improve productivity in order to ease pressure on government to impose export restrictions and trade bans.
We need to critically address the policy inconsistencies, both on the demand and the supply side. If, for example, we are promoting, let's say, national exports, for example, through the national export strategy tool, then it should be imperative on us to be very careful with the way we intervene in the markets, because the moment we start introducing ad hoc bans, we are disincentivizing investments in production.
Director for the Center for Agricultural Research and Development at Luana, Innocent Pangabanga Pili, said there is need for safety nets such as social protection programs to support communities affected by bans, particularly those living in rural areas.
When the restrictions are there in terms of the macroeconomic indicators such as the gross domestic product, we see a negative effect from there, suggesting that perhaps these restrictions, they tend to affect the economic activities that are supposed to generate income, or they're supposed to generate commodities for our own products. So in the short run, they look very okay, but in the long run, we see that these restrictions, they tend to be very negative. And at welfare level, we see the rural communities or the rural populations much more affected than the urban population.
The meeting, organized in collaboration with Luana, brought together experts in agriculture and food policy sector. Madalitso, NBC News, Lilongwe.
Minister of Transport and Public Works, Javi Mhango, has challenged African countries to invest more in transport systems by, among others, intensifying road construction and rehabilitation, but also investing in other modes of transport such as rail and maritime. Mhango made the remarks in Salima when he opened the 19th Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport for Africa Forum. Mhango observed that investing in transport infrastructure is critical for seamless and cheaper movement of goods and services on the continent.
Thank you, Lilongwe, for that segment. Let's now move on to business, where Eleni Chimoyo is on standby.
Thank you very much. And we start with the news that the tobacco markets have opened this week, generating over $1.442 million in revenue within the first 2 days of trade. The initial capital came from the sale of approximately 674,000 kilograms of the green gold, averaging a price of $2.14 per kilogram, a figure that has drawn complaints from most farmers. The development has also worried Minister responsible Rosa Mbilizi, who has since called on buyers to put forward favorable prices to make the trade worthwhile for farmers.
I saw that the tobacco that was on the auction, most of the bales were rejected, almost 99%. I had to speak to the buyers and Tobacco Commission to make sure that we stick to the minimum prices. And when we say minimum, it's minimum. The tobacco has to be bought above the minimum prices according to the grade. We expect improvements, but I'm watching, my eyes are there, and all of us want the best for our farmers.
As a close of business on Wednesday, more sales got registered on the contract tobacco tracks, with the remaining sales raked at auction. Meanwhile, always set for the opening of Limbe auction floors in Blantyre this Thursday. Now, the World Bank has called on nations across the globe, including Malawi, to invest in stable water systems towards attaining economic growth. According to the Bretton Woods Institution, water underpins health, food systems, energy, and an estimated 1.7 billion jobs worldwide. Speaking during the just-ended spring meetings in Washington, D.C., the bank's president, AJ Banga, said water is foundational to how economies function. Hence, now countries need to align reforms, financing, and partnerships to deliver reliable water services at scale.
At the World Bank Group, everything we do comes back to one outcome: jobs. Because a job is dignity, a job is stability, a job is hope. It is the most effective way to reduce poverty. Water is kind of the prerequisite for those jobs, because when water doesn't work, economies don't work, farmers can't grow, businesses don't operate, cities cannot attract investment, and young people, young girls and women, spend hours collecting water instead of building a future for themselves and their families. So let's be clear, water is not a side issue. Water is foundational and fundamental. But when efforts are coordinated, when policies, institutions, and investments are aligned, then you tackle the root constraints and you deliver real, lasting impact.
And commenting on the same, President of the Economics Association of Malawi, Betha Chikaza, said strengthening water systems, especially irrigation, is vital for Malawi, as it would help stabilize agricultural production, improve food security, and reduce volatility in the food prices, which in turn has implications for inflation. Meanwhile, Malawi is set to receive critical financial backing from the World Bank through its Rapid Response Facility, RRF. The facility is expected to cushion the country against a rising inflation and economic instability triggered by the ongoing US-Israel-Iran war. And now joining us is our senior business analyst, that's George Mhango, who's going to give us a little bit more details about the RRF. Now, George, just give us a background of the RRF.
When we're talking about the Rapid Response Facility, this is what is given to countries that are having challenges to do with maybe fuel importation challenges, fertilizer importation challenges, and also some of the inflation challenges that the countries are facing. So whenever they meet during these meetings, more especially the spring meetings in Washington, D.C., where Joseph Manaveka, Minister of Finance, is, I mean, there was a talk and an assurance from World Bank that Malawi should be able to apply for this funding so that it cushions some of these challenges that I've highlighted. And we are hoping that when the minister comes in back from the USA, Capitol Hill is going to sit down, look at how to apply for this kind of funding. And it's not the first time that Malawi has done the application for this funding.
Yeah.
So this is with the good news to different Malawians, different players in the importation and then exportation, just like a mere Malawian household in this country.
Now, what exactly will it help to address in Malawi?
This funding or facility is going to address issues of fuel shortage, as we might be able to know that even Minister of Information, Shadrack Namalomba, has highlighted the fact that maybe forest is a challenge. So that is one of the key issues that this facility is going to address. And then secondly, it's going to also look at the issue of how government can be able to import fertilizer, mindful of the fact that the war in Israel in Israel has also affected the supply of fertilizer imports. Farming is what Malawi relies on, and we're heading towards the farming season. So it's going to address all those kind of shocks.
Now, how will Malawi benefit? I know you've mentioned of how we're going to benefit through importation, aid in importation of key goods such as fertilizer. But how else is Malawi going to benefit, and which specific areas of need other than the fertilizer that you mentioned?
Yeah, we're looking at the issue of the disasters that the country has faced over time. Floods, drought. So that is another critical area where Malawi is going to benefit once government, applies for this funding. And this funding definitely from World Bank is indeed going to come at the right time, mindful of the fact that there was that declaration of, a disaster that different countries, those well-to-do organizations should zero in and support, as it was also during the time of COVID, when the International Monetary Fund also provided a similar funding. So this is more of, trying to balance the equation on the ground so that Malawians do not feel the pinch of some of these challenges, drought or disasters, fuel shortages, and maybe a quick importation of fertilizer.
Oh, well, thank you very much, George. All right, we will be getting more details about the Springs meeting as the Minister of Finance will be joining us in the country and with more details on what Malawi stands to benefit apart from issues such as the RRF as well as the water package that the World Bank has just announced. From me, Eileen Chimoyo, it's back to you.
Now in entertainment news, our reporter Simeon Boyce is giving us a profile of Madalitso Band, the band which emerged from the outskirts of Vuntandire in Lilongwe, used to perform for little money in the streets of Lilongwe City up until 2017, when they met a Good Samaritan who sponsored to record an album. The band is now more famous in other African countries, Europe and United States, where they travel every year to hold gigs and attend music festivals.
Madalitso Band is made of a duo, Yobo Maligwa and Yosefe Kalekeni. The band uses 3 instruments, a banjo, a babaton and a foot drum to wow audiences wherever they go. With these instruments and their voices, the duo is more famous in Europe and the United States of America, where they travel every year to hold music concerts and attend music festivals.
This is one was the Cindy Fountain of Banning. Never Madalitso. Jimwai, which you remember. That's a minute, we put minutes out of our bus. Dayan hada sangalara kumaso dawa jitsa hivi ifwa shemini marika kumbuka pana sindiwa chikwama nguli one more.
Some of the top music festivals where the band has performed include Roskilde 2018, Momad 2019, Womex in 2020, and last year they attended Africa Festival in the Netherlands. Some of the albums to their credit are Fungo la Nyemba and Wasalala. The duo, who are not that popular on the local scene, are true ambassadors of Malawi, as their Chichewa tunes are centered around Malawi and tourists come just to watch them perform. Simon Boyce, NBC News, Blantyre. And for the latest world of sports, let's join Norbert Jameson.
In sports, there are high expectations as the 2026-2027 FDH Bank Premiership kicks off this weekend. Teams have reinforced their squads and fans are expecting much from their teams. In our exclusive interview, we engaged FDH Bank Head of Marketing Ronald Chinchere to hear what the sponsors are expecting.
No, we're very prepared as a sponsor. History shows that we've been in football for quite a while now. We started with the Flames in 2016, and along the way we took over FDH Bank Cup, which has been a success. And we want to build on the same success to ensure that the FDH Bank Premiership is also successful. And for a bank, we strongly believe in our shared value strategy, where we strongly believe that as a bank, for the bank to grow, it depends on the community that supports us. And for a bank that is visible and present in all the districts, including Ngoma, we can only accept that we are where we are because of the support of the community. So when we look at the 5 billion investment, for us is supporting the country, supporting the economy. You might agree with me that when you have a game on a particular day, whether in Blantyre, in Lilongwe, in Rumpe or Karonga, there's a lot of economic activity that will happen. There are business opportunities for those that do transport business, food business, and a lot of businesses as well. Even if you look at clubs, clubs are pushing for commercial viability. So when you look at all that, you see that the 5 billion sponsorship is not just for football. It goes beyond that. It helps economies, it helps businesses, it helps individuals. And for us, this is what excites us, to see that our contribution, our investment in football is driving the sports economy. So in readiness of the weekend, we are ready. And I just want to call upon those who love football to look forward to the weekend where we're going to launch the first ever FDH Bank Premiership.
Former football referee Moffat Champiti says he will continue serving as referees, instructor and assessor despite ascending to the throne of Senior Chief Champiti of Ncheum. Champiti took over the mantle last weekend following the death of his father. He was one of the country's most decorated referees and was the last local official to officiate at an AFCON tournament in 2012.
I don't see any problem of doing that, and the more of sports is in my blood. As you know, that I've been a referee, since 1993, and I retired in 2012. Thereafter, I was sent to, go for some trainings as a physical fitness instructor for referees in Malawi. And as I'm speaking, I am the national physical fitness coach for the referees, the whole Malawi. And although I will be, doing tradition as a senior chief at my home, still I will have some time to go and doing some assessment, because football is in my blood. And I don't see any problem. I will continue as an assessor. I will continue as an instructor, because sports, football is in my blood.
And finally, after disbanding some years back, Chinamali Football Club has resurrected and this time around has started as an under-16 team. The team, which dominated the Southern Region Premier Division and disbanded while closing in on Super League promotion, is now eyeing to bounce back by starting from the junior level. Arthur Makwera is the club's patron and shares the vision with NBC's Amin Musa.
This team, Chinamwali under 16, it's a good team which you have just built. It is coming from this senior team of Chinamwali, the old Chinamwali that you know. So we have built this team now. This is just a start off. We are playing the playoffs for this, and you have seen the performance. The performance is just so good. We have the support that we wanted indeed. Our plans are so good that we intend to rebuild this team in areas where we see that we are weak, and due to the support that we are having from our community, Chinamwali, it's giving us courage indeed so that the team will go up. We first had the discussions with the elders, the community people, Chinamwali, about the problem that we had with the team, the old team of Chinamwali, and then we foreseed these problems. And when we sat down, we discussed all these problems, and everything is now seem to be good. That's why we have come up now with this under 16 team with the confidence that we whatever problem that we are going to have, it will not be strange because we already had those problems, and we are now set to go ahead. In 2 years' time, this team will be under 18, and then in other years then will be under 20, and in some years to come, this team, believe me, this team is going to play in the Super League. That's what we plan.
And that's a wrap inside the sports segment, as we hand you back to our main anchors.
Thank you very much, Nobet, for that sports update.
Well, that item also concludes this edition of News Hour here on NBC. A reminder of our top stories before we leave.
First Lady Professor Gertrude Mutaniga urges students of Our Lady of Wisdom to focus on education for better future. Indian High Commissioner hails the country's leadership for promoting freedom of worship. And in sports, all eyes on FDH Bank Premiership as new season begins this weekend.
Keep up to date with our news coverage on our digital platforms by scanning the QR code at the top right corner of your TV screen. You were with me, Sifatim Sosa, alongside
Simeon Boyce, and our Sun language interpreter tonight was Savita Wilima. From the entire team, it's thanks for watching and goodbye.
Good evening and welcome to the weather.